after this post-lunch session. I'm sure the session is going to be exciting to keep you away from the afternoon nap. Uh, I am Ishan. I work with Living Landscapes, and we are here today to talk about area-based planning, and we want to understand what promise area-based planning has for addressing SDGs. We have a very distinguished panelists here, and I'm taking their names. We have Dr. Tagat, who has been a retired CGM of NABARD and has been the initiator of watershed programs. Shri Nitin Khade, Joint Secretary, Department of Land Resources, and he specifically is working on watersheds. We have Shri Prashant Parmorikar, Director NRAA, who has been also working on drought proofing program. We have Mr. R.K. Singh, retired PCCF Chhattisgarh, and who is also recently, thank you, who has recently been working on eco-restoration policy and has a good understanding of agroecological planning. And we have Ms. Ashwini Kulkarni from Pragati Abhiyan, Nasik. I welcome all the panelists. I also introduce our chair and moderator, Shri Sudarshan Iyengar sir, who has been, who is also chairperson of Foundation for Ecological Security, and has been former VC of Gujarat Vidyapeeth and a noted Gandhian economist. I welcome you all. I request Dr. Iyengar to please come to the stage, please. I request all the panelists to please join the so I request Dr. Iyengar to please take over the session.
Namaskar. Welcome to this session, and I would appreciate if all of us come little nearer, shedding our so that we can have a very closer interest. Our panelists, it has some history. In fact, I started myself working in this kind of an approach, and I was doing district planning under the DPAP program way back in 1978. So the theme for us in restoring ecological balance, creating income increasing opportunities, having individual and society, group, beneficiary schemes, infrastructures, all this has been integrated into one or the other programs. So there's nothing new, but I think what's important is that we revisit them and see what is the scope now, what are the current programs, because they have changed their avatars. So we will understand what are the latest avatars, what have been done, and there is some integrated effort because the forest department is here, rural development department is here, land department is here, so, and of course NGO Ashwini is here, I suppose. So we will just, Ashwini, you are there, right? So I think that we have a good mix, and let's hear them. For the benefit of, we can decide how do we really want to do this. Ishan, when after this there's a tea break or there is one session and tea break? Thank you. So those of who you fall asleep in this session will be woken up in the tea. But I thought that if we can put our key points across, each one of us from our own areas that we want to really convey in some 5 minutes, 5-6 minutes, then we actually open it up for discussion. Because let this session, whatever time we are left with, we have already spent 15 minutes because food is important. So we will take our chai 15 minutes later. So we take our full time. So I would also, I am not going to, आप में से कोई भी wants to begin, please do so, because this is completely a business session. And should I request you? Okay. because somebody has to begin. थोड़ा सा talk about your work also, because you are, so that we know the background. That's all. ठीक है?
Namaskar, I am Nitin Khade. I am Joint Secretary, Department of Land Resources. I look after Watershed Management Division. प्रधानमंत्री कृषि सिंचाई योजना का जो वाटरशेड डेवलपमेंट कंपोनेंट है वो हम इम्प्लीमेंट करते हैं. सो अर्लियर आवर स्कीम वाज कॉल्ड IWMP, इंटीग्रेटेड वाटरशेड मैनेजमेंट प्रोग्राम. सो फ्रॉम 2008 to 2014 the name of the scheme was IWMP. Most of you may be knowing the scheme with that name. In 2014-15 the scheme was amalgamated with Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, and 3 more components implemented by Agriculture Ministry and Water Resource Ministry were also included, and we are the 4th component, that is watershed development component. And then it was named as PMKSY WDC 1. So it went on till 2021. So from 2008 to 21 was WDC 1. And from 21 onwards, now we are running WDC 2. So in WDC 1, we had covered around 2.9 crore hectare area. And in WDC 2, we are covering 50 lakh hectare area. We are following an integrated approach. So we just don't do soil and water conservation works. We also try to improve the economic status of the farmers. That is the main objective when we think of the scheme from economic point of view. Obviously, the scheme also has ecological benefits. So to improve the farmers' economic status, we also give other kinds of support, like we give them production system support. We want them to diversify, and as we have seen, generally the watershed project areas are marginal areas, rain-fed areas, rain shadow areas. So यहाँ पे बरसात के कम होने के कारण जो फार्मर्स का इनकम है, जो इरीगेटेड एरिया के फार्मर के कंपेयर्ड है, वो काफ़ी कम है. So if we want to bring him at par with the farmers in irrigated areas, तो naturally we have to make him leapfrog. अगर वो सेम वही अगर फूड ग्रेन क्रॉप करेगा तो शायद उसका इनकम लेवल उतना जंप नहीं करेगा. सो वी आर इनकरेजिंग द फार्मर्स इन आवर प्रोजेक्ट एरियाज टू टेक अप हॉर्टिकल्चरल क्रॉप्स, ग्रेप्स हो, अनार हो, गावा, मैंगो, जो भी है, ड्रैगन फ्रूट. सो इसके कारण उनका इनकम लेवल सब्सटैंशियली जंप हो पाए और वो इरीगेटेड एरिया के फार्मर के लेवल पे आ सकते हैं. जो बैकलॉग है उनका वो भी निकल आ सकता है. सो ये इसके लिए हम प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम के थ्रू और भी सपोर्ट देते हैं. अपार्ट फ्रॉम प्रोवाइडिंग सैपलिंग्स, हम उनको अगर इरिगेशन फैसिलिटी जैसे ड्रिप इरिगेशन चाहिए, स्प्रिंकलर्स चाहिए, तो वो भी देते हैं. ऑब्वियसली इट ऑल्सो हेल्प्स अस इन रिड्यूसिंग द वाटर यूसेज. ये जो वाटर हमने इतने मुश्किल से जो अवेलेबल कराया है, इफ़ दे स्टार्ट टेकिंग वाटर गजलिंग क्रॉप्स एंड फिर वो ट्रेडिशनल तरीके से इरिगेशन अगर उन क्रॉप्स को देंगे तो ऑब्वियसली जो भी वाटर स्टोरेज किया है वो जल्दी ख़त्म हो जाएगा. सो हम प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम में ऐसे और भी सपोर्ट देते हैं. इंटीग्रेटेड फार्मिंग के लिए जो भी बाकी ज़रूरी सपोर्ट होगा वो भी देते हैं. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट वी ऑल्सो सपोर्ट दिस एरियाज थ्रू लाइवलीहुड एनहांसमेंट. वहाँ पे जो सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स है उनको भी हम उनके लाइवलीहुड एक्टिविटीज़ के लिए सपोर्ट देते हैं. उस घर की जो लेडी हो उसको अगर मंथली अगर 5-10 हज़ार इनकम भी ज़्यादा हो जाए तो दैट हेल्प्स इन कैपिटल फॉर्मेशन इन दैट होम. जैसे अगर उस फार्मर को अगर अपनी खेती में कुछ नया चीज़ करना है तो ही विल नीड सम एडिशनल कैपिटल. तो वी फॉलो दिस इंटीग्रेटेड अप्रोच. And apart from economical benefits, our program has a lot of ecological benefits. The soil covered with green crops naturally helps as a carbon sink to a certain extent. So ये हमारे लिए बहुत important है. And watershed program में the measures are taken by us in the watershed project area, but these measures also help the farmers staying outside the watershed area also. अब जो एक्विफर है जिसका रिचार्जिंग होता है हमारे वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर के कारण, इट मे ऑल्सो ट्रैवल आउटसाइड दी वाटरशेड प्रोजेक्ट एरियाज बाउंड्रीज, इट डजंट नो द ह्यूमन बाउंड्रीज क्रिएटेड बाय अस. सो इसका फ़ायदा बाहर के फार्मर्स को भी काफ़ी सारा हुआ है. ऑन एन एवरेज हमारे प्रोजेक्ट का साइज़ 2500 से 5000 हेक्टर के आसपास होता है, तो वी कैन से रफली 4-5 ग्राम पंचायत होती है. वी हैव अ कम्युनिटी ड्रिवन अप्रोच. सो इसमें ऐसे सोचा गया है कि कम्युनिटी ने ओनरशिप लेना चाहिए. टेक्निकल सपोर्ट, फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट हम देंगे, लेकिन कम्युनिटी ने भी ओनरशिप लेना चाहिए. तो हम इसको और कैसे स्ट्रेंथन किया जा सकता है, इस पे काम कर रहे हैं. वी ऑल्सो हैव सम इश्यूज, जैसे आफ्टर वी एग्जिट हमारे स्ट्रक्चर्स का मेंटेनेंस नहीं होता है. इन केस ऑफ अदर गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ एजुकेशन, इफ हेल्थ, if they build a school building or if they build a PHC, then the health department or the education department is doing the upkeep of that institution even after 5 years. उसका PHC से बाद में सब डिस्ट्रिक्ट हॉस्पिटल हो जाएगा 20-30 साल बाद. हमारा क्या हो रहा है कि हम 5 साल बाद चले जा रहे हैं, तो वहाँ से दूसरी जगह जाते हैं, वो एसेट हम ग्राम पंचायत को देके, पर ग्राम पंचायत से वो उतना अच्छा उसका डेडिकेटेड लुकिंग आफ्टर होता नहीं है, या फिर उसमें जो एनहांसमेंट होना चाहिए दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के साथ जैसे होता है वो हमारे साथ नहीं होता है. तो दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द चैलेंज. अदर चैलेंज इज़ हाउ टू गेट द कन्वर्जेंस डन. कन्वर्जेंस होना चाहिए, ये हमारे स्कीम का एक बेसिक प्रिंसिपल है. तो हम अभी काफ़ी अच्छा काम उसमें कर चुके हैं. WC1 में लगभग हमने जितने पैसे खर्च किए 28,000 करोड़ के आसपास, हमने और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स ने मिलके, उसके ऊपर और 28% कन्वर्जेंस से काम हुआ है. एंड MG नरेगा इज़ दी मेजर सोर्स फॉर कन्वर्जेंस. तो अब लेकिन WC2 में हमें वो उस लेवल के आगे ले जाना है, तो कन्वर्जेंस इफेक्टिव भी होना चाहिए एंड क्वालिटी ऑफ द वर्क्स हैज़ टू बी इक्वली गुड. वाटरशेड में जितना हम साइंटिफिकली प्लान करते हैं उतना कभी कभी कन्वर्जेंस वर्क्स में होता नहीं है. तो ये भी हमारे लिए एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है. इस पे हम सोच रहे हैं. ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ डिस्कशन आई विल शेयर सम मोर थॉट्स. थैंक यू.
Thank you very much. जैसे मैंने बताया, these things have been happening from the beginning. So we had in the earlier program what we called Watershed Plus Plus, and all those ideas were already there which were talking about convergence. One of the good point that happened was with coming of the NABARD, the participation of NABARD with government and with agencies was very, very useful. So I think now I'll invite Venkatesh ji to say how he views these, sitting from the vantage point that he was. So उनसे सुनेंगे कि किस तरह NABARD और सरकार की पार्टनरशिप हुई और NABARD और एजेंसीज़ की पार्टनरशिप हुई. क्योंकि NABARD ने हुआ ये था कि जब ये वाटरशेड प्रोग्राम का एक बार उसकी करुणा ये हो गई, ट्रेजिडी ये हो गई कि उसमें हमारे NGOs जो पहले डोमिनेंट थे और जो हमारी ग्राम कमेटी की सारी काम जो है वो NGOs के साथ होती थी, तो वो लिंक टूट गया फॉर सम रीज़न. उसके कारण में वी डोंट वांट टू गो, बट इट हैपेंड. So then I think NABARD stepped in, and then NABARD was able to really give good kind of support, which is not a past tense, which is still going on. So हम लोग खुद भी देडियापाड़ा में we are very actively working with NABARD, and we are able to do good work. So I think now I'll request how there is a synergy between the two works.
Yeah. नमस्कार, मेरा नाम वेंकटेश है, और जैसे इन्होंने बताया कि हम शुरू में नाबार्ड से जब वाटरशेड के बारे में बात करते थे तो वी यूज्ड टू लुक एट महाराष्ट्र एज द मेन फोकस. सो दैट्स हाउ द वेरी फेमस इंडो-जर्मन वाटरशेड डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम वाज लॉन्च्ड समवेयर इन 92. In fact, one of my colleagues is here, David, and we all worked together for more than 10 years. So I also had the privilege of being on the other side, meaning from NABARD I had been deputed to work with this program. So you can say I lost most of my hair there working with village communities. But I think the best point is what, taking a cue from what Mr. Kade said, basically watershed planning is a very difficult and painstaking process. So most village communities don't like it. Definitely government and other people also don't like it because it takes a long time. I was telling Guru the other day, he's also one of the colleagues I know, that unless you plan leisurely, you cannot implement hurriedly. If you do a very hurried plan, it takes a long time to implement because you don't know the realities. So most of the watershed planning in those days was what we used to use a word called gross planning. कि इतना क्षेत्र है उसमें काश्तकार पीक उगा रहे हैं तो we should do bunding. This is a non-arable land, so we should do something else on that, or contour trenching. तो वो gross में बहुत problem होता था when you wanted to implement. So the reason I'm saying is most plans, area-based plans are prepared so that somebody sitting far away can sanction it. उसका सुविधा से वो प्लान बनती है, implementation की तौर से नहीं बनती है वो. So then after it is sanctioned, then it goes back to the guy who has that plan with him and he has to find out how to implement it. So one of the key things we learned in Indo-German was, can we prepare a plan which can be implemented by the people themselves, the point which he said about community. The second is, of course, very major issue confronting watershed is this whole issue of NREGA and many government schemes which focus on individual benefit. Like, you know, we have this farm ponds and there are so many, in Maharashtra we call it Jal Yukt Shivar. There are like that many state government schemes on this. Basically, individuals will benefit. So there is no area approach to this planning. And DBT में ऐसा होता है कि you want to give direct benefit. So where is this approach going to come from if everybody is going to adopt this method? And I think in Maharashtra a few years ago, I remember they were looking at how NREGA can be, you know, woven into a watershed-based approach, and it didn't happen because it's very, very difficult. And the most important thing is most farmers, policymakers, everybody is interested only in water conservation, not in soil conservation. And surprisingly, all our experiences in the past show, if you don't hold soil in place, then whatever water bodies you create downstream will be full of silt. अब डैम लीजिए, percolation tank दीजिए, जो भी है. So the point is, if you don't know how to hold soil, and since farmers also don't like soil, everybody wants only water. जैसे उन्होंने बताया सिंचाई, I mean, that was a path-taking thing. A watershed component became part of a Prime Minister's Sinchai Yojana. So that means the focus is more on how to bring in irrigation, drip irrigation, life-saving, whatever name you want to call it. So the idea is, how do we now bring back the focus to this more painful, area-based way of planning, and then overlay your individual benefits, as you were saying, to get better benefits. I think this is the greatest challenge. And if farmers and the policymakers both say, no, we are very happy with what is happening at present, it may be a very, very difficult task. Thank you.
Good. Coming from a banker, that's very interesting. Actually, the problem is that when you take area-based approach in planning, the stakeholders, nature and individuals, people, society, village. I was very enthusiastic because I was young. So not that now I'm not, but in those days I was a little more enthusiastic. So what I did was, sitting in the district, I started doing watershed mapping. And then I superimposed the watershed maps on the administrative maps. And then started talking to village people. They said, ये हमारी गांव की यहाँ लिमिट आ गई. अरे मैंने कहा तुम्हारी लिमिट आ गई पर पानी तो आगे जा रहा है, जंगल आगे जा रहे हैं. So when you do this area, there are people And within the area there is private, there is public, there is common, and common mein there is forest. So see, when we are sitting in this, and the point was when you are talking about convergence, all these stakeholders first have to understand that we are working around what is nature and we are there as part of it. So it is whether it is department or farmers or pastoralists, we all have to sit together and see first, understand what nature wants us to do and how nature will help us in doing. That actually will be a very effective way of trying to solve the problem. And these are really the problems. Or jaise Nitin bhai ne bataya, see, the most important problem is the moment you give irrigation. See, this debate has been there from the very beginning. We have individual freedom. I can't ask my forest, I can't force my farmer. तो होता क्या है, thank you. होता क्या है कि in our area, when we did this minor irrigation tanks, the engineers were very smart. On the paper, to make it viable, they all showed, sir, always low duty crops, because that will give them larger command area, so their cost benefit analysis will be there. But when actually things takes place, it's all water intensive crop. Anything when you get water, then you go for sugar cane or chawal, dhan, yahi hota hai. So there is some amount of education. And then of course, as I said, in integration, the forest is there. So we have with us a very wonderful person in PCCF, Saab Baithe hain, Rajan Singh, sorry, I will, Ravindra Singh ji, I'm sorry. उनसे अब सुनेंगे कि what was the perception of the forest department when this kind of watershed based integrated planning on the area basis had to be done. Singh sir.
Iyengar sahab, I'll take some liberty because we are talking about area based planning. So I'll first of all like to talk about what has been done in the recent past, last 6 years. When you look at the guidelines and the orders issued for area-based planning. And then one example from my own state, Chhattisgarh, of watershed and some of the challenges and what could be the way forward. And in between, I'll try to cover your forest. So I think localization of SDG, Government of India has done a lot of things, a lot of guidelines led by the Niti Aayog, and especially the MOPR guidelines, which actually has aggregated the 17 SDGs into 7 themes. And then they have issued a detailed guideline for preparation of the GPDP. And because of the 14th Finance Commission that provided more than 2 lakh crores for providing basic services, the GPDP actually took up. In fact, earlier there was BRGF, and when people really started understanding about the planning, and the BRGF was actually closed down. So, and after that, I think for urban areas, they developed urban index so that they can actually measure the progress of the cities, and they can compare where do we stand in terms of the attainment of the goals. For district level, they are trying, they have already developed for Northeast, which is being adopted in my state also. Then the PDI, the Panchayat Development Index, which is very elaborate, 144 targets, 577 indicators, 688 data points, you can imagine, for a Panchayat. So, and then most important thing which I have come across for the first time, sir is sitting here, I think he may be aware if it has happened in the past. Sir, I have never seen 26 secretaries of Government of India signing one resolution. Because we have been talking about whole of the government approach, but never seen that the resolution was passed where they reaffirmed their commitment to attainment of SDG, and they made 3 important commitments. Commitment number 1 was to align their centrally sponsored scheme or program, data and institutions with the SDG. The second was converging the resources, and third was creating an enabling environment and actively monitoring and reviewing the progress and for the achievement of SDG. I think this is excellent progress. And you see, then empowered committees have been constituted in the state level, which is headed by the Chief Secretary, to ensure that there is a convergence at the Gram Panchayat level, GPDP, right? And there is a committee at the district level, there is a committee at the block level to see that there is a convergence. And we all know that there is a constitutional mandate of the PRIs to prepare the plan for economic growth and social justice. And the localization has actually provided, has actually simplified the SDG goals so that people can relate with and really understand at the local level. So on paper it appears that yes, it's wonderful. For area-based planning, the policies are wonderful and there's so much of commitment, right? And e-Panchayat has been brought out, so there's a transparency and there's accountability. But what is happening at the ground level? So I'll just take one example from my state, which is considered to be a very successful watershed project. So MG Narega Cell, in 2018, October, November probably, in 12 districts, they took one mega watershed project which is spreads over 26 blocks. 26 blocks covering around roughly 1500 micro watersheds, an area of around 7 lakh hectares, right? And the target was to, in fact, double the income of farmers, small and marginal farmers, 1 lakh marginal farmers, right? And increase the crop intensity. After 4 years only, the income has doubled, right? And in 2022, NRSC data says that the moisture has improved, right? And the crop intensity, of course, of around 50,000 hectares, they have now started having 2 crops instead of 1 crop. But what has been done actually on the in the field, and how they have been able to converge with the GPDP, or for that matter block level or district level plan? Unfortunately, the guidelines, they look very good, but when it comes to convergence with the GPDP, since last 2 years they have been trying very hard. Of course the experiences vary across the state. It all depends on the individual. But the guideline doesn't matter. How the individual actually interprets the guideline, that becomes important for convergence. But convergence by and large has not happened. The results are good, but convergence has not happened. But convergence in a way has happened that in a block meeting, or where, because these blocks are being supported by 12 NGOs. And some of the NGOs are here, Pradhan is here, and I know I've discussed with them. How the convergence has happened? Once, as you said, there is a water, Agriculture Department has a target. Now when the targets are discussed of the line department, because every line department has its own priority, its own timeline, its own reporting system, and this is upward accountability, not the downward accountability. And really, when you are talking about area-based planning and need-based planning of the people, it has to be a downward accountability. Unfortunately, our administrative system doesn't provide for downward accountability. My PR will be written by my superior. So it goes upward. Ultimately, we are accountable to the God, hopefully. So that's how the convergence has happened with these pisciculture or the horticulture. For the forest department, they have planned, in fact, the micro watershed plan is there, and they say this is where you can, if you can plant, so they have some resources, they have planted. But by and large, they are farm ponds, mostly on the private lands. That has increased so they have done some drainage line treatment. But if we say, is it covering the landscape? I would say no. One important thing is that the current assessment, we are unable to assess the extent on severity of degradation of our ecosystem, unfortunately. I've seen the long list of indicators, that also. Then you say, can I add after 688 data points? Is it really feasible? Can they really understand? Means I think it has to be a graduated one. So convergence is definitely a big problem. When it comes to the participation of the people, they are saying, sir, when we go, when NGOs they go, people actually participate. But in GPDP, they don't have a lot of trust, because many activities that are proposed, they do not get fund. There's a parallel planning process going on for each CSS. And I believe as long as we have a parallel planning process, we cannot think of integrated planning and coordinated implementation and monitoring at the highest level. This will act like a panacea. That's not going to happen. So the biggest challenge is that the parallel planning process is there. Every line department has its own own priority, its own timeline. The third important thing is we do lack the capacity, institutional capacity at a PRI level and elected representative level who can raise the voice. The awareness, of course, in terms of entitlement and what right I have as a citizen. When you are talking about the 9 themes, if my village is not a healthy village, can I ask for something? And then, do we have adequate resource? Especially in the backward regions, for one, I would like to cite one example. Like the 15th Finance Commission, in its devolution formula provides 10% weightage for the dense forest, right? 2021 in India, the states received around, depending on how much dense forest they have, 85,000 crores. Now it's an untied fund. It goes to the state government. Now what was the justification given in the Finance Commission? That they provide huge ecological benefit to the nation, but there's an opportunity cost, right? The opportunity, and therefore there's a fiscal disability. That is the last word. And the second thing is that now we have international commitment as well. So the word was changed, forest and ecology, and it was raised to 10%. Now we must understand that the economic opportunity is not equitably distributed in the state. The people who are in the fringes of the forest or within the forest, they face the crop raiding, their houses are damaged. So I think this money should have gone as a PS, right? Payment for ecosystem services, right? Because they're the most vulnerable. Look at the infrastructure, whether health, education or livelihood. They are the poorest one. So, and the most important historical injustice that has been done to the backward region, now you may name aspirational district or whatever, but the things do not actually change by just changing the name. They are backward regions because of the fact that there are no infrastructure which is required for the development, health, education and livelihood opportunities. Now, this additional amount, when we are saying that there's not enough resources, so there's no need-based planning as of now. Rarely, I'm not saying that you can generalize, but by and large, there's absence of need-based planning. And the line department's convergence, one solution that we have been talking about, fund function and functionary transfer, I don't know when that will happen. But what is the other way? The other way is that in this project, one thing has become very clear, that wherever the NGOs have worked, they have been really able to involve the community. So this project, which was supported by BRLF, Axis Bank Foundation and the Ford Foundation, provided 15 resource person to each NGOs and training and some additional amount for preparing the plan. That has really helped in. So that means that we do have skilled manpower shortage in the public system, which can be filled by the CSOs, right, and supported under CSR by the private agency when we are talking a whole of the society approach. Unless we go in that way, I think the change will be painfully slow. The second thing is, once we have moved to the water, they are also trying to diversify the crop, right? And they are also trying to link it with the market, promote natural farming. But in some areas, they have been successful. This is the right time after 5 years when they are thinking of the second phase, that we should now start talking about the eco-restoration. And also trying to understand what we mean by commons. Because up until now, we have not talking about the climate, the air. Now the relationship, the commons are changing and the relationship of the people are also changing. When it comes to forest, when we talk about CFRR, at least not talking about IFR, the management will change and the most difficult thing will be setting the objective. Now, historically, maybe the most marginalized sections have been using that forest. But now, I can claim my stake being a villager. Now, if I say the objective is to grow timber, because once that is harvested, everyone will benefit instead of NTFP, because then the rich people will not go to collect the NTFPs, because only poor people. So how you design, and a lot of it will depend on who facilitates and how are we allocating values. It's a question of values, which are changing in fact. The relationship of resources with the new generation is also changing. And what we have witnessed is the newer generation is becoming more resource illiterate. So these are very important questions, which we must answer, because whatever is there in the policy and the practice, there is a huge gap. On the paper, it looks that we have provided a very good model to the world. But when it comes to the practice, there is a huge gap, and which is not easy to solve, because all these things that we are talking about, convergence, capacity, and undue preference to infrastructure, they have all been recorded as challenge in GPDP document itself. They are there. And they are like, persisting problem which have been continuing and we have not been able to solve. So I'll stop. I think I have taken more time. Thank you very much. Then I'll be more specific about your forest, but I think...
No, I think this was important, and you have brought completely a whole picture, which is wonderful. It's the grassroots, what's happening. As I said, many avatars have happened, and when all the presentation is over, I will have a special request, because we have a person amongst us who has actually overseen all this. Vijayananji is here. I'm going to tell him to give his comments on what he has observed from the presentations and what actually is the concept, idea. National Rainfed Authority is the new avatar, and I think, as I said, Prashant Bhai, you will speak about that now Rainfed Authority is trying to focus on what and how that is trying to solve this problem of area planning, because that's very, very specifically an area concept that we have brought.
Thank you, Iyengar Sahab. Good afternoon, everyone. I respected all the panelists on the dais. I am Dr. Prashant Armorikar, and I worked in the ministry for around 27 years. Presently, I am working with National Rainfed Area Authority as a director. But I worked in Agriculture Ministry for around 25 years and looked after important schemes. Like you must have heard about Agriculture Technology Management Agency. This is a district level autonomous organization under Atma scheme. I looked after Atma also, which is a very important scheme for the empowerment of farmers. I fully agree with the panelists, and very important discussions were going on. The time has come when we have to see about and when we have to discuss about the conservation of soil and water. Besides this Agriculture Technology Management Agency, I coordinated with other divisions in the ministry, and there are many schemes like Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, National Food Security Mission, then Mission on Integrated Development of Horticulture. Having the experience of the ministry, I got the opportunity to work in National Rainfed Area Authority as a director. And let me tell you, I am surprised when the data shows that more than 50% of the total food grain production is from the rain-fed areas. And more than 51% of the area, net sown area, is from the rain-fed region. So there is a lot of scope, to empower the farmers through the approach of this soil and water conservation. And NARA is working particularly on area-based approach, on landscape planning approach. NARA is a knowledge partner of the other ministries and departments. NARA is a knowledge partner of the state governments, and giving the directives, formulating the guidelines for the implementation of watershed development programs. And I am happy to tell that this WDC PM KSY 2, NARA has associated with Department of Land Resources, Ministry of Rural Development. And this the component of PMKSY, that is per drop more crop, PDMC. So this PDMC, it shows that we have to conserve each and every drop of water, and we have to conserve the soil, and that is why the slogan comes always, and गांव की मिट्टी गांव में, खेत का पानी खेत में, like that. So, and now we are focusing upon this soil and water conservation. In order to meet the international commitments also, and our commitments in the sustainable development goals, and this land degradation neutrality, where there is a target of degradation of 26 million hectares land. So this is a very impressive target, and that we have to achieve. For that, we have to, I am fully agree with my fellow colleagues. They said that there is a need to have convergence among the schemes, for the benefit of farmers at a large. We are having limited resources in some of the limited schemes, but if we converge the activities of other schemes, like the ministry is implementing rain-fed area development program. This is a cluster-based program where we are focusing upon the district level planning and the village level planning also. So this is a cluster-based approach where now we are giving the support of 20,000 rupees per farmer. And in order to divert the resources from the other schemes, definitely the convergence is required. It may be the convergence from Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, from convergence from this MNREGA, convergence from this ministry of this Mission on Integrated Development of Horticulture. And let me tell you, Tamil Nadu is leading very fast in increasing the income of farmers by adopting this integrated farming system. You must have heard about the institute at Modipuram, that is Indian Institute of Integrated Farming System and Research. Recently, we had interaction with the principal scientist of this institute. They have developed 74 models of integrated farming system to support farmers, to support the increase in the farmers' income, and to support the farmers. So they are encouraging the farmers to adopt the integrated farming system approach to enhance their income. And some of the states, they are following their models. Recently, we had a workshop here in the NAS complex, and where all the senior officers from state governments came. And we also encouraged for replicating this IFS model across the country. So this is about raising income of the farmers through integrated farming system. And recently, this 15th Finance Commission, they are focusing upon drought mitigation planning. So drought mitigation planning, actually now presently the budget is 1200 crore and 100 crore for one state. So that is for 12 states. And now it is at the takeoff stage. So here the cluster-based approach is being adopted, and the district level planning is being done in consultation with the professional agencies, and they are working with the states. And this is the program of NDMA, and NARA is the knowledge partner. National Rainfed Area Authority is a knowledge partner in getting implemented this project across the states. So now we have received the proposal from 8 states, and there were certain observations from Ministry of Home Affairs for revision in the proposals, and I hope that within a month all the proposals will be received in NDMA, and then after getting the approval, the implementation phase will start. So this is the one of the best programs, means for drought mitigation planning we are targeting. With these words, I thank Iyengarji, and I thank all of you for listening, and whatever your queries will be there, that will be answered by all the panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Iyengarji need not be thanked. We all should thank each other for holding this session. अश्विनी को ऐसा लगा होगा कि ये एनजीओ को मैंने मार्जिनलाइज कर दिया, पर है ऐसा कि वो मेरी पड़ोसी है, वो नासिक की है और मैं बाजू में धर्मपुर का हूँ, तो मैंने सोचा कि अगर किसी को थोड़ा समय धीरज रखनी होगी तो पड़ोसी को रखनी होगी. द अदर पर्पज़ ऑफ कोर्स वॉज कि अश्विनी काम कर रही है और बहुत सुंदर काम कर रही हैं. तो अभी इन्होंने पूरी कहानी सुन ली कि भाई सरकार, नाबार्ड, ये सब मिलके क्या सोचते हैं और उनकी असेसमेंट क्या है ग्राउंड लेवल की. तो अब हम अश्विनी से ये सुनेंगे कि वो जो काम कर रही है उसमें उसको ग्राउंड लेवल पे क्या दिखाई दे रहा है, कहाँ कहाँ उसकी. क्योंकि एक पर्पज़ ये है कि ये सेशन हम इसलिए करना चाह रहे हैं कि एक बात तो हमको ये लगे कि जो हम स्थानिक जगह पर, लोकल लेवल पे जो हम काम कर रहे हैं, उससे हम मानवता ने जो अपने लिए सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स की बात कही है, वहाँ तक पहुँचने में हमारा क्या योगदान हो सकता है. सो आई थिंक ये एक बहुत लार्जर क्वेश्चन है और इसको जोड़ना है. चूँकि मैं यहाँ बैठा हूँ इसलिए थोड़ा फ़ायदा ले लूँ. मुझे ये सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का हमारी अपनी कल्चर और भाषा में कोई अनुवाद मिलता नहीं है, क्योंकि वो विकास को सस्टेन करने की बात कर रहा है, जिस विकास को लेकर के हमारे पास बहुत सारे सवाल हैं. तो मैंने एक शब्द का प्रयोग किया है जो मैं गुजराती और हिंदी में मैंने उसको पॉपुलर कर दिया है, आणि मराठीला पण असं मी सांगतो, संपोषित. संपोषित यानी पोषण देने वाला, क्योंकि हम प्रकृति की बात कर रहे हैं. तो संपोषित विकास वो जो है पोषण देने वाला विकास, जो मनुष्य को पोषण दे और जीव समस्त को, प्रकृति समस्त को पोषण दे, वो संपोषित विकास होना चाहिए. हमारा अपना ध्येय संपोषित विकास का है, और आप संपोषित विकास करेंगे तो उसको आराम से, जो दुनिया में बात चल रही है सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के जो गोल्स हैं, वहाँ तक हम पहुँच जाएंगे. पर हमको मानस अपना होना चाहिए, ऐसा मैं सोचता हूँ. पर अश्विनी की बात अब सुन लें.
Thank you. And thank you for organizing such a important convention. I would like to talk about NREGA, because whatever we have heard, okay, I belong to an organization called Pragati Abhiyan, which was started in 2006 by some of us friends, and we have primarily worked on NREGA, MGNREGA, the erstwhile EGS of Maharashtra, and we've been working on employment guarantees since 2001. Now, we have heard everybody, and what we have seen is, look at the numbers. All other programs have talked about either 100 crores, few hundred crores, few thousand crores, up to 28,000 crores. But when it comes to NREGA, it is beyond 70,000 crores per year. So that's the outlay that is being given in spite of suppressed demand. So if we really cater to the demand, it will go much higher. Now, when it comes to area-based planning, NREGA has tremendous potential. And in our experience, we have seen that villages can become drought-proof, villages can become tanker-free, because that is one of the things where government spends a lot of money every summer. I mean, something like 700 to 1,000 crores every year only on providing tanker water to villages. And we have seen that villages can become tanker free. Villages can grow second crop with just NREG, because there is nothing else right now available. Now, area-based planning definitely requires a lot of coordination. And this coordination is the thing that, like you rightly said, COSs do it with all the cooperation or all the knowledge exchange that is required fundamentally in doing area planning. So one of the commons I would consider is knowledge, and that is where we have to exchange, have discussions, sit with everybody, and then do area planning. So when we did this kind of planning, those villages, we have seen that the objective of NREGA can be achieved within 5 to 7 years. The person who wrote EGS first time in 1949 said that I want EGS to wither away. I want employment guarantee scheme to wither away, because then there should be so much of land being used, water being available, soil being conserved, that people don't need to go out to work. Now, given this, we have seen some villages literally doing that. Some of the villages that we've been working with for last 10, 15 years now just need it only in April, May. Otherwise, they don't want NREGA works in their villages. They don't need it. Now, given this, if this is the potential and if this is the possibility, why isn't it happening everywhere? In spite of spending 70,000 crores across India, minimum. What I see is the coordination that is required is local governments are either not trained, are hesitant, or reluctant to get into this whole process. We tried this in Maharashtra. State government did try to encourage integrated participatory planning exercise. Lot of trainings were held, but it didn't continue after the pilot. Now this we have to understand. What is it that goes into it that CSOs can do, but the local administration is unable to do? Once this is done, we saw to it that it has to go into Gram Sabha. So 15th August Gram Sabha and 2nd October Gram Sabha is very crucial for this. And it has to be put there, it has to be resolved there, and it has to become part of the resolutions in these two Gram Sabhas. Because once this is done, then the NREGA Act tells us that nobody can change it. Nobody can change it, and it has to be implemented. Yet, what we see is that there are certain programs which are pushed from top. Awas Yojana, these sanitation programs, they are just pushed. Every village has to have this. Now, if the villagers want something different. And while we are talking about area planning, it's not just the labor who is working on the farm, working on MGNREJ, but villagers who get into planning. And we need to realize that this labor on NREGA is a landed labor. They are small and marginal farmers, they are rain-fed farmers, so they do farming during Kharif, and it's only after Kharif that they need work. So instead of migrating, now they can do work in their villages and create infrastructure. So one issue is the things are getting pushed. Second is, there is something called 60-40 ratio. So for total expenditure that happens at the district level, minimum 60% has to be spent on manual labor, and maximum 40% can be spent on other things like machinery or material, or skilled labor. Now, this is at district level. What does that mean? That with a huge district, 60% gets utilized somewhere else, 40% gets utilized somewhere else with check dams and things like that. Now, what is this? What kind of planning is this? Is the district the area now? So 60-40 at the district level, I personally feel with all this experience that what is the logic and what is the basis of having it at district level? Can it be at cluster level? I mean, I understand it can't be at Gram Panchayat level. Sometimes blocks are big or small depending on, it varies with state to state. But can we define something like a cluster and have 60-40 at the cluster level? That will really create possibility of area planning, implementation of area planning, and then we can see that the infrastructure gets built for the community. Next point is this, because of this again 60-40, what is happening is individual and community schemes. Now, again, local administration needs to have that training and that capacity to organize and be at the work site when there are 300-400 people working. It is not easy. So they prefer individual benefit schemes. Whether 10-15 people are there, one work is going on, easy to do musters, easy to continue with the payment orders and things like that. Now, in all this, the community works are getting sidelined. So we see farm ponds, but we don't see community tanks. We don't see watershed. Now, for area planning, again, we need to think. Forest department at the top, agriculture and allied in the middle, and social forestry at the bottom. When will all these people come together and sit and do area planning for a village? These are the difficulties in area planning right now. And when we talk about convergence, I would like to say here that right now, convergence is being understood differently by different people. Convergence at the funds level is one thing. MGNREGA has funds, so everybody wants to have convergence with MGNREGA. Point is at the farmer level. Let's say if animal husbandry is giving some livestock to a farmer, and MGNREGA provides animal shelter, and MGNREGA also works on commons to create water availability and feed and fodder for the animals at the commons, only then the project can be successful, not otherwise. So when we think about all this, the convergence has to be at the livelihood level, at the farmer level, at the level of area, rather than just having funds being shared by a couple of departments or couple of schemes. So this needs to be understood. I think, yeah, processes needs to be given more importance, which is not much happening now. We earlier panel we heard about process indicators. I think we all need to sit together and work on that. And lastly, I would like to say that given the climate change challenge, given the weather extremities that we are experiencing, we also need to go back to the drawing board and think about various ways of handling. What kind of structures do we now require? What kind of planning do we require to mitigate extremities in the weather, which is making vulnerable people more vulnerable? Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini. That's a good ground level perspective. Sir, there is a sense of deja vu, for me at least. I'm hearing the same things. So I therefore wanted his observations in very brief. We are talking about the same things that's happening. Ashwini is telling us that convergence at local level. See, there is no idea of logical combinations and sequencing. Whenever we talk about convergence, we are talking about combinations and sequencing and the timeline how it should follow. As Ravindra Singh ji has pointed out, the vertical loyalties are more binding than the horizontal responsibilities. So this, sir, I mean, we have sat through so many district coordination committee meetings, but this issue has not been resolved. So it's the financial performance, it's the financial targets, it's not the physical targets. And when you do this kind of combination and sequencing, there are delays, there has some activity has to complete before it starts. The budget year is only considered one. Every department has to finish in one budget. I think on area-based planning, one good experience that we have had, of course, it's partial in some sense at FES, is that we do Prakriti Karyashalas. And I'm sure somebody from our FES group will be talking about it in this session also, that how it tries to, do the capacity building also syncs up, that we were talking about, that there is a capacity building deficit. Vijayanandji, you will share your observations, please come here. Just generally on this area-based planning, because everything is linked, sir. So if you are able to give us 5-7 minutes of your distilled wisdom that you have for all these years, it will be good.
Some random thoughts based on my long experience, and as the same feeling I have of deja vu. I must have, right from my junior days, sat through so many this thing. But one important lesson on panchayats, strengthening panchayats, is that we need to trust them and we need to be clear what they are doing. So they can't be agencies. If you trust, they perform. I can tell you, if you don't trust, they will not perform. The best example, but nobody has empirically analyzed, is the COVID experience. Who saved India from the worst aspects of COVID? Panchayat, NGOs and the SHGs. So this is a secret combination which has been validated, which we can try in different permutation combination in all our development things. For want of time, I cannot get into details. Now the capacity of panchayats. You can't create so much of stuff. But you can create, but I don't think there's even a report on that. That is, if you pool the administrative costs of all the schemes, it's a huge amount. And then, I have seen Government of India used to pay the block staff till mid-80s. So you pay and say state gives 40%, 60%. This is a norm for a Gram Panchayat. Easily you can prepare a HR norm, and let's not go for the usual contract things. This is the staff you can. And there's money. We calculated. Amarjit Sinha, when he was secretary, put up a committee under Mr. Jugal Mohapatra, I think. We actually calculated. There's so much of money if you pool the administrative costs of most of the sectors which relate to Panchayat Raj. If you can't do that, then the CFT model, which has become kind of weakened now, is ideal. But you can't have CFT for Narega, CFT for NRLM and something. CFT is again an integrated thing which requires cross-departmental thing. CFT is a great idea. And we can list the expertise required. But another thing which I would request you to this thing, learning from Andhra Pradesh natural farming, the community resource person, a lady who is trained and paid, not made to do work for doing many of the tasks. Most of this is Narega planning, labor budget planning and all that, they can be CRPs for the panchayats. Then, again on GPDP, if you look at the steps, are we following the steps? Not at all. Gram Sabha is meeting, but there is a situation analysis, the development report of the panchayat. It can be participatory, it can be this thing, and then you have a written report. This is my panchayat, this is the development status. And I find the best tool for planning in any panchayat is a map, where everything is layered. Now it's very easy. Earlier we used to have a lot of problems with GIS. Now it's so simple that you can say this is the panchayat, and you can't be very partisan when you know the panchayat, this is the development, this thing, ecological, environmental, infrastructure, and that kind of planning process is envisaged under GPDP. And one more point I wanted to say, the big lesson of NRLM, I think PM was inaugurating or participating Lakpati Didi and saying 8 lakh crore has gone to them in 10 years. NRLM succeeded because we followed the resource block approach, a beacon approach. Invest all your energies in something. If all departments invest energies in, let's say, some clusters, maybe in 15 years or 10 years, we will reach some kind of saturation. This approach is strongly, I would say, advocated. Then, again in GPDP, there's a term called resource envelope. You map the resources which are available, and there's a term also called low cost, no cost activities. Panchayats can do a lot of things by talking to people. So we have gone for an infrastructure. Cement concrete road seems to be the most favorite item. So can we go to the softer things? And I can tell you from my Kerala experience, panchayats are better at softer things than in infrastructure. Care, palliative care, disability, they have a natural strength which we need to tap. On the 60-40, I fully agree with what you say. I fought against it on file, but I was overruled. It's absolutely stupid to have 60-40 at the district level. It should be ideally at the Gram Panchayat level, maximum a cluster. Because you can really play. Don't think Narega is corruption free. You can play and somebody will get all the, powerful panchayat will get all the infrastructure works and the weak panchayat will get the Mitika cow. You can analyze that and come out with this thing. The last point I wanted to tell you is a new thing is emerging, which is just a potential, but it's a policy of both MOPR and MORD. So Government of India policy, accepted by states, is this SHG Panchayat convergence. I'll be talking on panchayats tomorrow, more of that tomorrow, but that is a great potential. This convergence of departments will happen only if there's a demand. A demand comes from below and asks the department to fit in, as she said. Not that it cannot, I handle Narega and we struggled. The convergence guidelines were all issued. It doesn't work. But there are also technical issues. We can't blame departments. How do you match funds? At what time the fund is available? And what are the reporting requirements? The audit reporting requirements. So we mix all the funds. You can't meet all this routine requirements. So that's also a reason. So it's not very simple that some departments are all this. But this demand-based thing, the VPRP, now is renamed as Village Prosperity and Resilience Plan. That is a potential that poor people ask. These are the things I want. At least for that, if the departments have to give a written reply, these are the things which have consolidated at the block level and respond to saying that you asked this, we have given you this. Then convergence will work. Maybe 40% or 50%. They represent bottom 50% of the population. That will be a great effort. These are some stray thoughts. Thanks to Mr. Iyengar.
These are the insights that we require. We have now little time and we will open this up for clarifications, questions from panelists or sharing in very brief certain experiences on this. The point is that how do we want to know whether this area development plan is a good creature to have, and if so, how do we strengthen this process where people are not ignored and people-based, people-participated area development plans, how it can evolve better. Comments on that after listening to all of us. We have seen what government does, what government has in its kitty, so we can come up with our own experiences, suggestions and way forward. And I think this is not the last session in itself. This theme is something that we should keep pursuing in one fora or the other. And Vijayanandji did not do a small commercial saying that tomorrow I am going to speak, so please come and attend. But I would recommend that we all go and sit there so that we can listen that as an extension of this session. Right. So that's an extension of what we are talking about today. So please, it is open now.
The potential that IFS has is tremendous, and I think what came out from Ashwini's point also, that we have to integrate animal husbandry with crop husbandry and also rural non-farm work also, etc. Then the kind of challenges which Ashwini has thrown, that at the farmer level, we need the acceptance of the farmer firstly of that this particular IFS matters. IFS will actually then make sense to people. One of the challenge which I don't know, Prashantji, I want to learn from your experience, and I have been discussing with Ravi also this issue, that is that family labor is much less available to the farmer household these days compared to what we used to have earlier the case. How does one solve this particular problem? Because IFS is going to be very labor intensive. There is no doubt about that in my mind. If you have any thoughts about it, how we can use public investment or schemes, anybody out here on the panel, because you raised IFS directly, so that's why I've addressed the question to you, but it can be addressed by anybody. So this ownership question is a larger question. It is not only in the context of IFS, and I just want to make, see, I do not find yet this on the radar of the farmers' movements, this particular issue. And I am really wanting a dialogue on that. And I'm going to request Sudarshan to actually, help. And Ishan, I have been in touch with them, etc. And I think this issue, because if once the farmers' movement also has this on the agenda, it will make a political difference. That ownership is required, I think, is a must. And in Bombay, we are doing, Sainath and myself are doing a workshop together in October 26, 27. I'm going to request many of you to join us, because who are those close by, and that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy that you posed this question, and fortunately, you will not believe. We also discussed this. This kind of questions with our scientists who deal with the integrated farming system. We are basically focusing on livelihood and nutritional security. And in the rain-fed, particularly in the rain-fed region, we see the landless farmers and laborers. It is labor intensive, I fully agree. And now our focus is on the conservation of these community assets. So the ownership, we are focusing upon the ownership of these natural resources to the community, not to the individual farmer. And this community, in this community, all small farmers, then landless laborers, and everyone has to be there, and they have the responsibility to own the resources and to conserve the natural resources. And basically, the awareness generation is very, very important. Awareness generation and empowerment of farmers and empowerment of landless laborers. This is also equally important. And empowerment of landless laborers and convergence, and then this empowerment of these laborers who are the beneficiaries of schemes like MG Narega. So it all depends upon the coordination and convergence. So this is one of the issue which I hope that this will be resolved in coordination and consultation with all the ministries and all the departments who are working for the farmers and landless laborers. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashantji. I see a lot of raised hands. Krishi Vignan Kendras have to be still made more autonomous, and they must come out of their, in some sense, control of the agriculture universities, because the priorities change. KVKs are the institutions which actually will take your programs. I think you all will have to be sort of impressing upon the agriculture ministry that KVKs actually had a different role, and Krishi Vignan Kendra should come forward. We'll take a comment and a question from you. Jagdish, then I want you to also say a few things when we conclude. You should do that. Please. Please also share your...
myself, Amitabh Ghosh. I'm from Jamshedpur, Jharkhand. Sir, it's addressed to you and you both. This is a common thing. In our area like Chhattisgarh, the forests are on hills. And the rainwater which comes down the forest, when they give us the project, watershed project, I have not seen any project that which is complete, only because that in forest area there was no treatment done. And it is never possible. In Jharkhand, Siddharth Tripathi, the dynamic IFS officer who was then Narega commissioner, he tried his best, Chief Secretary issued order, but the saturation or so it is not being done. So in spite of your this commitment that 26 secretaries sat down and made some commitment, it has not been done yet, sir. It's a very big thing, and for watershed development, for any place, it is most important thing which has not been done. That is number one. Number two is, sir, Nitinji, is same plantation. In watershed project, this plantation thing, actually you need to think over. Because the first year goes for mobilization. In second year, if you start about plantation, the project is of 3 years. and you don't get sufficient time that plants should grow and you can take care within the project. So for that, some extended part should be there in the project itself. We have raised it several times, but it is a point that we should make. Please.
About the first question, that it's not easy to do watershed works in forest area. Or they are left untreated, you mean. So we are following an approach that if some work is to be done in forest area, so we are trying to get it done through forest department only. We have the system of project implementation agency. So instead of watershed department or soil and conservation department or agriculture department being the PIA at that place, we designate forest department as the PIA. So they do it departmentally, and then there is no issue of giving any permission to any outsider agency. So I think that is the approach which is seen as most effective. Apart from that, there are issues. I know we all understand there are issues, but it also location specific, person specific, state specific. So at some places, even if suppose the work is done by the PIA who is other than forest department, but if the machinery is coordinating well, then also it has got done. About the second question, you asked about plantation. Okay. You mentioned that the project period is 3 years, but our project period is 5 years. Earlier, WC1 project period was 7 years, but now it has been shortened, but it's not 3 years, it's 5 years. So we can complete these works within 5 years. Yes, some schemes like MG Narega, they have a maintenance component. I think their estimates are prepared with maintenance for 3 years. But we don't have that system in our scheme. But we have convergence with MG Narega, and there also we do some horticultural activities. So the maintenance part is taken care of some works if they are done through MG Narega. In our case, we are giving other support, and I think we have got good results. In states like Karnataka, we have seen that our target is to cover 20% of the project area with horticultural or commercial afforestation activities. But in Karnataka, we have reached almost 16%. That's the highest achievement. Some states are lagging behind, but there are some states which are doing so well. So we have seen that it's possible. If Karnataka can do it, then other states can also do it. And we will definitely try to provide some support to such maintenance through other support funds if possible. We are trying to promote FPOs in those project areas. So the FPOs can have a system, just like cooperatives. We had cooperative sugar factories in Maharashtra, in UP. So they had some kind of support system to sustain their farmers, sustain their crops. So that can also be thought of. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Amitabh Babu, you will have to do that over a cup of tea. I don't want to really, because we have overshot time. I'm sorry. I mean, we can't extend this session. Singh साहब माफ़ कीजिएगा. चाय के लिए चलते हैं, और क्योंकि 4:15 बजे इस सेशन के लिए दूसरे सेशन को नुकसान नहीं होना चाहिए. जल्दी जल्दी गर्म चाय पी के वापस आइए. मेरे सारे पैनलिस्ट को बहुत धन्यवाद. ईशान कुछ फॉर्मल करेंगे, इसीलिए ईशान को सौंप देता हूँ. हिंदी में ही चलाएंगे, जितना हो सकता है चला रहे हैं. नहीं बोल सकते हैं.
सभी
नहीं बिल्कुल, आप चिंता मत करें. हमने यहाँ पर जितना हो सका है अंग्रेजी में बोलने का, उसका हिंदी थोड़ा थोड़ा बताते चल रहे हैं. ठीक है ना, बताएंगे. और आप दरअसल किसी दोस्त को भी ढूंढ लीजिए जो आपको जो है बताता रहे कि भाई ये क्या हो रहा है. कोई षड्यंत्र तो नहीं हो रहा पीछे अंग्रेजी में.
सबको
जगदीश को बोलना था, पर मैं रोक रहा हूँ.
हाँ अभी कि समय अभी फिर चाय के बाद फिर दूसरा सेशन भी होगा, तो उसके समय पर भी ये बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सभी का जिन्होंने अटेंड किया, और बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद पैनलिस्ट का भी। हमारे पास एक टोकन ऑफ एप्रिसिएशन है, प्लीज़ एक्सेप्ट दैट फ्रॉम आवर साइड। आई रिक्वेस्ट हिमानी टू हेल्प हैंगर।
अच्छा एक ग्रुप फोटो हो जाए, ईशान आ जाओ, योर ग्रुप कौन निकाल रहे थे भाई फोटो आप? हाँ